Greetings, Missouri Mid-South Conference. I bring you greetings briefly at the conference office in St. Louis. But on Tuesday, as you are watching this, I am actually flying on the way to Fayetteville, Arkansas, where I will be meeting with the Reverend Patrick Dugan of the CEO of the Church Building and Loan Fund, where we will be meeting with our Marshallese churches that have loans with the Church Building and Loan Fund. It is a very important way that we are in covenant together. Another way that we are in covenant together is how we collaborate together with the national setting, with our local churches, with the association, and with the conference. And very recently, I was given a wonderful opportunity and endeavor that fits with who we are as the United Church of Christ, especially in the Missouri Mid-South Conference. Last Thursday, the Reverend Traci Blackmon, the Associate Minister, General Minister of Justice and Local Church Ministries, called me and said that they are working on an endeavor to purchase medical debt in St. Louis City and County. For those of you who may have been watching the UCC news in the past couple of weeks, they recently did this with Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago and the Illinois Conference and other UCC churches in Chicago and the national setting, where there are companies that purchase, a nonprofit company, RIP Medical Debt Relief, that purchases medical debt for those who live at or below poverty line, and they purchase the medical debt and then they pay it off. And what has started to happen is that either individuals or organizations, or in our case, churches, will raise money and then will give that to this 501c3 nonprofit organization that then is able to go out and purchase that debt for much cheaper than the debt actually costs. So what Reverend Blackmon said was that in the Chicago instance, that they raised about $38,000 and they were able to pay off $5 million of medical debt that related to about 5,000 families in the Chicago area, zip code, who live at or below poverty that have immense medical debt. So she has received so much support for this that she is reaching out to us specifically for the St. Louis City and County to see if our churches in the zip codes of St. Louis City and County would be interested in contributing as well, with an additional caveat. The Deaconess Foundation has generously offered to match every dollar that a local church raises. They will match that up to $40,000. Woohoo! Now, what Reverend Blackmon said is that condition is that it can't be money that has been sitting in an endowment. It has to be raised by the church and by individuals of the church in that moment, and it has to be by churches that are within the zip codes of St. Louis City and County. This is very exciting, with a few caveats. Number one, those UCC churches that want to contribute and participate, the deadline is November 15th. I know. It is, as you're watching this, October 29th, which means, ministers, that you have less than 2 weeks to get this before your church council, get this in your newsletters, get this in your congregational, your worship and your other opportunities to raise as much money as possible. I wish that I could change the deadline, but this deadline has been set by Reverend Blackmon. So know that, yes, the deadline is coming very rapidly, and the information that you may need both about this endeavor, about the Chicago endeavor, about the United Church of Christ endeavor, as well as the 501c3 nonprofit, their information is all located right below in the e-courier this week, and the office can send you information as well. The second piece and caveat is that last Saturday the Conference Council met, and we discussed this endeavor for about 45 minutes of what does this mean? What does this look like? What does it mean that this is only St. Louis City and County? And what does this mean for the rest of the majority of the conference that is not included in St. Louis City and County? And so I want to share with you 4 action items that the Conference Council chose to take in light of that 45-minute conversation and discernment about how we believe God is calling us for such a time as this to join the national setting and the Deaconess Foundation in this situation, but also in understanding that there is medical debt throughout the communities in Arkansas, Memphis, and Missouri, and that our responsibility is to lift that up and to be present to that as well, that St. Louis is not the only place. And so the 4 action items, I want to read them, that the Conference Council shared. Number 1 is to affirm my leadership as conference minister, to advocate for and promote this particular endeavor with our St. Louis City and County churches and the St. Louis Association Council. Number 2, to contribute $1,000 to the St. Louis debt abolishment purchase in support of this endeavor, as well as the broader concept of medical debt relief in expanded areas of focus. Number 3, to encourage me as the conference minister to pursue initiating similar collaborations for our other 2 associations in the rural areas, especially of the Eastern Association, and in particular in 2020 for the Eastern Association, and the Kansas City area of the Western Association in 2021, with a financial commitment of $1,000 to each of those associations. Number 4, to encourage Reverend Blackmon and the national setting to include rural communities in future medical debt abolishment endeavors because of the high propensity of medical debt among the poor in rural communities as well as urban settings. It is these last 2 points that I want to mention for a moment. There was great support and collaboration for the endeavor that will be St. Louis City and County, and the understanding that you and I both know that medical debt is reaching all of us in all of our communities, that rural areas have this propensity as much as urban and suburban areas, and they should not be discounted or left out in these endeavors. And so the Conference Council hope, and my hope as conference minister, is that in the next 2 years that we can look at this from a strategic perspective of where are the rural areas in the Eastern Association, perhaps in the Western Association, that we should be looking at, and how we can invite our churches in those areas specifically to collaborate together. Reverend Blackmon told me that in order to get this movement going in your own community, all you need is a minimum of $15,000 of money that can be then shared with the RAP Medical Debt nonprofit brokerage organization, that then you can also pay medical debt in your own communities, rural, urban, and suburban. And then in 2021, the same would happen in the Kansas City area as well. Again, this is not limited to those specific places that I have mentioned. I think that the Holy Spirit should have a revival, and that in this year of Jubilee, that we have the opportunity to be generous and contribute in a collaborative way, not just with our own local churches or association or conference, but with a national setting, and like with the Deaconess Foundation, perhaps other area organizations or Chisholm organizations as well. This is important to me and goes to the very heart of our unifying call, that if we are about supporting and empowering one another, this is the very core of how we do that, not only for ourselves, but how we do it in our community. For those of us who live at or below the poverty line and have incurred medical debt because of the injustice of our healthcare system, but also that we are in this together, that we are sharing vital communion for such a time as this. This is exciting, and this is a moment that I believe the Holy Spirit is moving us to go beyond our churches and our associations and our conference and even all that we have known. I want to share with you the final part of Reverend Blackmon's letter, where she talks about that when these letters will be sent out with a check for each of these families for their medical debt, that there is a letter that will be shared, a yellow letter marked with a UCC logo, informing them their debt has been forgiven. The letter will include the names of the churches, the conference, the organizations in the national setting contributing. The letter also reads, "You may never enter the doors of one of our churches, but we are the United Church of Christ, and we love you. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. And most importantly, you are beloved by God, and your debt has been forgiven." This is the day that our God has made for such a time as this. Let us rejoice and join in the endeavor to give of our resources that are not ours but are God's, so that in this day of Jubilee, that we may share with those who live at or below poverty line, who have incurred so much medical debt because of the injustice of our healthcare system, and who may be liberated from that debt to truly live into who God has called us to be, a just world for all. In the name of God, who creates us, the Christ who teaches us to love and give beyond our imagination, and the Holy Spirit that gives so generously that all we can do and want to do is to give and match as well. Amen.